I never thought I'd be one of those guys who caught his wife cheating. Honestly, I always believed in loyalty, in sticking through the tough times, and I thought Amanda was that kind of woman. We'd been married for 8 years, and for the most part, things looked normal, happy even, or so I thought. She was the kind of woman who'd throw around words like trust and loyalty at the drop of a hat, and I believed her. I mean, she was beautiful, confident, and always seemed to have a sharp tongue for anyone who crossed her except for me, or so I thought. The signs started to show up little by little. It was subtle at first. She'd be late from work more often. Not just an hour or two, but sometimes 3, 4 hours. She'd come home smelling different, like perfume or something I couldn't quite place. She'd brush it off, call me paranoid, telling me I was imagining things or that I was insecure. That didn't sit right with me, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to be that guy who questions his wife's fidelity. Then came the texts. Small, quick messages, hidden behind her phone when she thought. I wasn't looking. I'd catch her slipping her phone into her purse when I entered the room, and she'd nervously try to hide the screen. I knew there was something there, but I didn't have proof. Still, my gut told me I needed to watch to keep my eyes open. Things had been strained for a while, but I kept convincing myself it was just work stress or her being tired. The truth was, I was trying to deny what I already suspected deep down. One night, everything changed. I had a feeling and I decided to do a little digging. I snuck into her phone when she was in the shower, just curious, not expecting to find anything significant, but what I saw made my stomach drop. There were messages, flirty, suggestive, and downright dirty, between her and some guy named Dr. Carter. I recognized the name immediately. He was the hospice care doctor who'd been treating my father during his last months. I knew they'd been friendly, but I never imagined it would go this far. Sex, inappropriate conversations, secret plans. It was all right there in her own words. I felt sick. Embarrassment, rage, and betrayal all hit me at once. How could she do this? While my father was dying, while I was sitting by his side, she was meeting some guy, doctor or not, behind my back. It was like a slap in the face, a punch to the gut. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark, staring at her messages, trying to process what I'd found. The worst part, she lied. She always lied. When I confronted her the next day, she denied everything, called me paranoid, and accused me of spying on her because I was insecure. That's her favorite tactic: deny, deflect, and accuse me of being the crazy one. But I wasn't crazy. I knew the truth. And deep down, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let this go. Not after what I'd seen. I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. But that love was turning into something bitter, something angry. I was furious that she could be so callous, so indifferent to what I was going through. My father's death was supposed to be about family, about caring, about grief. Yet she found her way into some sick, secret world with her lover. That's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. The truth was out now, and the real game was just beginning. After I saw the messages, everything changed. The world around me felt off-kilter, like I was walking through a fog trying to grasp what had just shattered. I kept replaying her words in my head, the flirtation, the promises, the blatant sex talk. It wasn't just some innocent flirtation, it was a full-blown affair. I couldn't ignore the fact that while I was sitting bedside, holding my father's hand as he took his last breaths, Amanda was sneaking around with her doctor. The betrayal burned deep, hotter than anything I'd ever felt before. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep quiet about it anymore, even if part of me still hoped she'd deny it, that I'd somehow be wrong. But I wasn't wrong. The evidence was there, glaring, undeniable. I waited until she came home from work that evening, my stomach twisted in knots. I remember standing in the living room, the phone clenched in my hand. When she walked through the door, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Her eyes flicked nervously, trying to gauge what. New? I need to talk to you, I said, voice low but steady. She looked at me with that fake, bitchy smirk she often wore when she was trying to manipulate or dismiss me. What's going on, honey? She asked, acting innocent, as if she didn't have a clue. I pulled out her phone and placed it on the table between us. Who is Dr. Carter? Tell me the truth, I demanded, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Her face twisted into an annoyed sneer. Seriously, you've been spying on me, she snapped. You're crazy, you know that. I don't have to explain myself to you. Stop lying, I shot back. I saw the messages, I know what you've been doing. While my father was dying, you were fucking him, weren't you? The words hit her like a bolt. She froze for a second, then scoffed. Wow, you really are nuts, she sneered. That's your big discovery, you've lost your mind. I was just talking to him, doctor-patient stuff. Nothing more. You're imagining things. You're just paranoid because you're stressed about Dad. I shook my head, feeling the heat rise inside me. Don't lie to me, I saw the messages. The sex talk, the plans, you're sleeping with him. How long has this been going on? Since when? She rolled her eyes aggressively. Oh please, you think I'd cheat on you with some stupid doctor? That's pathetic. Maybe I was just venting, you know. You're so insecure. You're always accusing me of stuff, but you're the real problem here. Her voice dripped with venom, and I could see the disdain in her eyes, the contempt she didn't even bother to hide anymore. I was furious, but I also felt hollow. Betrayal wasn't just about the sex, it was the lying, the manipulation, the fact that she'd been hiding this from me for weeks. I'd spent my father's last days trying to be strong for him, and she was out there, doing who knows what. The pain of realizing she'd been cheating on me behind my back, especially during such a fragile time, was overwhelming. I told her I needed some time to think, that I couldn't process everything in that moment. She huffed out an exasperated breath, rolled her eyes again, and stormed off to the bedroom, muttering about how I was overreacting, how I was crazy for accusing her. Classic Amanda, always the victim, always the innocent girl, but I knew better now. I knew she was a liar, a manipulator, a user. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at her in the dark, watching her breathe, feeling this enormous pit in my stomach. The thought of her and Dr. Carter, who had been treating my father, made my blood boil. The idea that she was taking advantage of a man at his most vulnerable, then lying to me about it, was enough to make me sick. I felt stupid for trusting her, for believing that she loved me, for thinking we had something real. That's when I realized I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront her, call her a slut, and hope she'd admit everything. No, I had to be smart. I had to get proof. I started looking for ways to gather evidence to make her slip up again, to catch her in the act if she was stupid enough to keep going. I knew from the start that she was manipulative, that she'd try to weasel her way out of it, but I was prepared. This wasn't just about ending the affair. It was about destroying her confidence, her lies, her facade. Over the next few days, I watched her, kept tabs on her phone, checked her schedule. I even considered hiring a private investigator, but I didn't want to go that far unless I had to. Still, I was determined to get more proof, something concrete I could use. I started paying attention to her conversations, her habits, trying to catch her in another lie. The more I watched, the clearer it became. Amanda had been sneaking around with that doctor for a while now. The betrayal was deeper than I first thought. She'd been lying, manipulating everyone around her, just to get her fix of whatever thrill she was chasing. Honestly, I felt exhausted. I just lost my father, and now I was dealing with this mess. My wife cheating on me using the very man who was supposed to care for my dying dad. How sick is that? I felt like I was sinking into a pit of betrayal, and I didn't know how to climb out. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not after what I'd found, not after everything we'd been through. So I kept my guard up, waiting for the next move, knowing I had to be ready for whatever she threw at me next. The days that followed were like walking through a storm, every moment filled with a mix of anger, hurt, and a strange sense of clarity I never thought I'd find in such chaos. I became obsessed with catching her, but not just with words or accusations anymore. I needed proof, undeniable evidence that I could use when I finally decided what to do. I started secretly installing a couple of cameras around the house, discreet ones, hidden in places I suspected she might go, especially the bedroom and her car. I wasn't proud of it, but I was desperate. I needed to see her in the act, or at least catch something that would prove she was cheating. It was strange how quickly I became the guy surveilling his own wife. Every night I'd check footage, analyze her movements. The first few nights, it was just her coming home late, acting suspiciously, being overly defensive when I asked where she'd been. Then came the night I saw her leave the house after midnight. Not unusual, I thought, except she didn't go to work or see her friends. She went to some place I didn't recognize. I looked closer at the footage and saw her entering a parking garage behind some local hotel. That's when my stomach sank. She was meeting someone, and from the look of the video, it was definitely not a casual thing. The next morning, I confronted her again. I told her I knew she was lying, that I had proof she was sneaking around. Her eyes widened, then narrowed into that bitchy glare she always threw out when she was about to spin a lie. "You're really losing it," she spat out. "You think I'm cheating. You're paranoid just like everyone says. Maybe you're the one with the problem, not me." But I didn't buy that bullshit. I pressed her, showing her the footage, trying to get her to admit the truth. Her reaction was classic Amanda: deflect, deny, insult. She snapped, "God, you're so fucking dramatic." Maybe I just wanted to get out of the house for a bit. You know, have some fun. Not everything revolves around your stupid obsession with my every move. She was loud, angry, twisting words, trying to make me feel like I was the crazy one, but I knew better. I had seen her slip into her car, go to some hotel, and come back late. She was caught red-handed, or so I thought. But her reaction only made me more suspicious. She started lying even more, claiming she was at her sister, or that she was with friends. The more she denied, the more I saw her desperation. It was like she needed to convince herself she was innocent. And honestly, I felt a strange mixture of relief and fury. Relief because I finally had proof, and fury because I'd been played for a fool all this time. I decided I needed more evidence. So I set up a little system, more cameras, more discreet ones with better angles. I wanted to catch her red-handed, not just suspect. That night I stayed up late, watching her movements again. Hours passed, and then I saw her slip out of the house in the dead of night. This time she went to a different hotel. I felt my blood boil. She wasn't just cheating. She was sneaking around, lying, hiding every step of her secret life. When she finally came back the next morning, I was waiting for her. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. I met her in the kitchen and I told her she'd crossed a line, that I knew everything. Her face turned icy cold, but she still tried to deny it. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're making this up. I'd never do that to you." But her eyes betrayed her. There was guilt, that guilty look she always had when she was lying. I didn't want to argue anymore. I simply told her I needed time to think, that I'd be staying at my father's house for a while. I didn't want to be around her, not anymore. She threw a fit, called me all kinds of names, accused me of spying, of controlling her, as if I was the villain here. But I didn't care. I knew what I'd seen, and I knew I had to be smart about what I did next. Deep down, I was already planning my next move. The betrayal had cut so deep I almost couldn't believe I'd trusted her for so long. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to let her destroy what was left of my dignity, my sanity. I wasn't going to let her keep pulling the strings. Whatever came next, I knew I'd have to be prepared for her attempts to lie, manipulate, maybe even turn it around on me. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Not anymore. I spent the next couple of days in a daze, trying to piece everything together. I moved into my father's house, not because I wanted to be away from Amanda, but because I needed space to breathe and plan my next move. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that sneer, the lies she kept spinning. The betrayal gnawed at me, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew that I couldn't just confront her again without proof, and I couldn't trust her to come clean willingly. I needed to hit her where it hurt, but smartly, carefully, without rushing into something I might regret later. I started digging into her phone logs, her social media activity. I wanted to know exactly how long this affair had been going on, how many times she'd met with Dr. Carter behind my back. I wasn't going to let her get away with just denying it anymore. I also made sure to document everything, screenshots of messages, timestamps, even the hotel receipts I found on her credit card statement. I was building a case, piece by piece, because I knew once I had enough, I could tear her lies apart. Meanwhile, Amanda was still acting bitchy and dismissive. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of being obsessive. She'd say I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her, but I knew the truth. I knew she was lying, sneaking around, doing something she shouldn't. Her attitude made me realize she thought she was untouchable, that I wouldn't dare do anything about it. That only fueled my anger. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. She'd underestimated how much I cared, or maybe how much I was willing to do to find out the truth. One night, I decided I'd had enough of waiting. I wanted to catch her in the act, not just hope she'd slip up again. So I set up a surveillance plan. I knew her routine now. She always went out after work, always claimed she was meeting her sister or friends, but I'd catch her somewhere else this time. I kept the cameras rolling, waiting for her to slip again. That night she left the house around 9 p.m. and I followed her at a safe distance, using my phone's GPS to track her. She headed to the same hotel where I saw her the night before. I parked a few blocks away, hidden in the shadows, and watched as she entered a side entrance. Minutes later, a car pulled up, and out stepped Dr. Carter. I recognized him immediately. The sight of them together, it was like a punch to the gut. They walked into a room hand in hand, smiling as if nobody else existed. My stomach twisted with rage, humiliation, and heartbreak all at once. I was about to burst, but I kept my composure, knowing I had what I needed. The next morning, I confronted Amanda again. This time I was prepared. I showed her the footage, her sneaking out, the two of them in that hotel room. Her face drained of color and her eyes widened in shock, then quickly twisted into anger. "You're stalking me now," she spat. "Fucking crazy, you're obsessed. You're doing all this because you're insecure and jealous." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "No, I've been patient enough, I've seen enough, I know about the affair, I know you've been lying to me this whole time." Her jaw clenched and she started to spin her usual lies. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed. "You're making this up, I've been faithful, you're just paranoid because you're insecure. You're the one who's messed up, not me." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I finally felt like I was in control, like I'd caught her red-handed. I told her I was done playing her game, that I'd call a lawyer, that I'd document everything, and that I wasn't going to let her ruin me. She yelled, cried, threw a tantrum, but I stayed calm. I knew that I'd seen enough to make her realize that her games were over. That day, I didn't say much. I packed a bag, told her I was leaving, and that I'd be staying at my sister's place for a while. I wanted her to think about what she'd done, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I'd gone from being a trusting husband to someone who had to watch his wife betray him in the most sickening way possible. I was hurt, angry, and exhausted, but at least I finally had clarity. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about survival. I knew I had to protect myself from her lies, her manipulations, and her betrayal. As I walked out that door, I looked back once. Her face was a mask of fury and desperation. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this nightmare. I'd lost my father, my marriage, maybe even a part of my trust in people. But I also knew I wouldn't let her destroy me completely. Not without a fight. The aftermath hit me like a freight train. I moved into my sister's house, trying to piece myself back together, but the shock still lingered. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that cold, dismissive look she gave me when I showed her the footage. I kept replaying the moments, wondering how I missed all the signs, how I let her manipulate me. For so long, the worst part was knowing she'd been lying to me during the last months of my father's sickness, using his dying moments as cover for her secret meetings. I felt disgusting for trusting her, for believing in the version of her she spun so convincingly. I spent those days trying to focus on myself. Therapy helped, but honestly, nothing could erase the betrayal. I felt a mix of relief and despair. I was free from her lies, but at what cost? I'd lost my marriage, my family stability, and even a little bit of my own self-respect. Still, I knew I couldn't keep living in the past, obsessing over what I'd uncovered. I needed to move forward, even if that meant starting over from scratch. One thing was clear. I had to face the reality that Amanda was not the woman I thought she was. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, they all made sense now. She was selfish, manipulative, and willing to do whatever it took to get her way. I realized I'd been a fool for so long, ignoring the red flags, dismissing my gut feelings. But I also learned a lot. I learned how much I valued honesty, loyalty, and respect, and how I'd been blind to see that she didn't share those values. I started reaching out to friends and family, trying to rebuild my support system. People were sympathetic but also straightforward, telling me I deserved better, that I shouldn't let her get away with it. I listened, but deep down, I felt broken. I'd spent years building what I thought was a life with her, and now it was all crumbling. It was hard to accept that someone I loved could be so malicious behind my back. I was angry at her, but also angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Over time, I made the difficult decision to file for divorce. I knew it was the only way to truly move on. I wanted to disconnect from her toxicity, her lies, her manipulations. I also knew I couldn't keep living with the scars of her betrayal. Every glance, every memory, felt tainted now. So I filed the paperwork, started the process of healing, and focused on rebuilding my life without her. It wasn't easy. There were nights of loneliness, moments of regret, but also moments of clarity. I deserved peace, honesty, and someone who valued me for who I was. Reflecting on it all now, I realize how much I grew through the pain. I learned to trust my instincts, to listen to my gut, and to never ignore the warning signs again. Betrayal hurts, but it also teaches you what you really value. I'd like to tell anyone going through something similar. Don't ignore the red flags, don't keep pretending everything's okay, and don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't respect you. Because in the end, no matter how much you loved her, her lies and manipulations aren't worth sacrificing your self-respect and sanity. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm finally free from her, and that's what matters most. I'm still healing, still trying to trust again, but I feel stronger. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find someone who deserves my honesty and loyalty, someone who won't use my love as a weapon against me. That's the lesson I carry now. Never settle for less than you deserve. Looking back now, I realize how much everything changed in just a few short weeks. I went from a man who thought he had a perfect life, married, stable, with a good job, to someone who was shattered, betrayed, and questioning everything. It's funny how life throws those curveballs when you least expect them. The betrayal with Amanda was a blow I didn't see coming, but it forced me to confront truths about myself I'd been avoiding for years. I learned that trusting blindly is dangerous, that people hide things behind masks, and that sometimes the ones who seem closest to you are the ones capable of the deepest hurt. That whole experience also made me realize something else, how important it is to prioritize your own well-being. I spent so many years trying to hold everything together, to keep the peace, to pretend I was okay. But in reality, I was just putting off my pain, letting her lies fester. When I finally faced the truth head-on, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I didn't need her approval or her lies anymore. I could start over, rebuild, and find my own sense of happiness again. The hardest part has been the aftermath, dealing with the emotional scars, the loss of what I thought was my future. But I also found strength I didn't know I had. I learned to lean on friends, to talk about my feelings, and to accept that healing takes time. I don't wake up every day feeling angry or broken anymore. Instead, I wake up with a little more hope, a little more clarity that I am better off without someone who would betray me so fundamentally. To anyone out there reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't dismiss the small signs. Don't ignore that little voice in your head telling you something's wrong. And most importantly, don't be afraid to walk away from a toxic situation, even if it's painful and messy. You deserve honesty, respect, and someone who loves you for who you are. No one should have to accept betrayal, lies, or manipulation from the person they trusted most. Sure, I still have days when I feel sad or angry, but they're becoming fewer and farther between. I'm learning to heal, to forgive myself, and to slowly move forward. I know that someday I'll find happiness again, maybe with someone new, maybe on my own. But I do know this: I will never let anyone treat me like that again. I will never ignore my gut or settle for less than I deserve. And that ultimately is what I want everyone to understand. No matter how much it hurts now, time will heal the wounds and life will go on. You just have to be brave enough to face the truth, to stand up for yourself, and to choose your own happiness over someone else's lies. I learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful I did. Because if there's one thing this ordeal has taught me, it's that I am stronger than I ever thought I was, and I'm finally free to start again.